Local legend says a simply made oak chair has killed more people than most documented serial killers. It has a confirmed kill count of over 60 souls. Tonight, we're talking about the bloody history of Thomas Busby's Stoop chair, also known as the Chair of Death. Welcome to Horror History and Haunting. I'm your host, Christina. And if you're a creepy little weirdo like myself and love everything spooky, bizarre, and weird out there in the world, then you're in the right place. Tonight's story was chosen by my creepy little weirdo family over on the Horror History and Haunting Facebook page. If you would like to join in all the fun and chaos of that, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. And if you want to share some extra creepy love with me today, make sure you stab that like button, subscribe, and of course, haunt the notification bell so that way you don't miss any uploads that I would have in the future. Thomas Busby was known to be a very rough character. Not only was he a drunkard, but he was also a liar, a thief, and a thug. He lived in the latter part of the 1600s in North Yorkshire and was the original owner of an inn near Sandhutton. That inn would end in infamy as the Thomas Busby's Stoop Inn. Now, Daniel Aweti was the father of Thomas Busby's wife, Elizabeth. He was also known to be a petty crook in the area. Now, Daniel purchased a farm about 3 miles away from the inn, and he built a house there that he named Donati Hall. Aweti and Busby were business partners in a counterfeit coining scheme. Aweti had a secret chamber in his home built that you access through a secret tunnel where they would get together and make these counterfeit coins. Now, Thomas's and Daniel's relationship was rocky to say the least. They often argued at the end, so the details about the final days of Aweti's life are very vague. It was said that earlier in the day, Thomas and Daniel had an argument about something. What it was about is really not clear. Some speculate that it was about Elizabeth, Thomas's wife, or something to do with the coining scheme that they were running. But no one really knows, as they argued so often that it was hard to tell what they were arguing about this day. Some even say that the argument was just simply over Aweti sitting in Thomas's favorite chair at the inn. What is known is later in the day, a drunken Busby found Aweti sitting in his chair at the inn. And Aweti was threatening to take Elizabeth away from Thomas and was going to take her back home to the farm. Busby then forcibly grabbed Aweti and threw him out of the chair and actually threw him out in the street out of the inn that day. Now, later that night, Busby was still boiling with anger over the argument, and at some point he found a hammer and he walked the 3 miles to Donati Hall, and in a blind rage he beat Aweti to death with the hammer. Now, in a panic, realizing what he had done, he hastily stashed the body in the nearby woods. Now, when Aweti was finally discovered missing, of course everybody suspected Busby, and his body was quickly found in the neighboring woods. So they came and arrested Busby at the inn, and he was eventually charged with Aweti's murder. In 1702, Busby was tried and sentenced at the York Assizes, and his sentence was death by hanging from a gibbet. According to Wikipedia, a gibbet is the use of a gallows-type structure from which the dead or the dying were hung on a public display to deter other existing criminals from doing the same. Occasionally, a gibbet was also used as a method of execution, with a criminal being left to die of exposure and starvation. The practice of placing a criminal on display within a gibbet is also called hanging in chains. In Busby's case, he was hung to death and his body was dipped in tar and left to rot in the gibbet right across the street from his inn as a deterrent to others. It is said that the stoop chair was cursed by Busby one of 2 different ways. The one telling is that his final request before he was executed was to be able to have a final drink in his favorite chair at his inn. When he finished his drink, he had to be forcibly removed from the chair to be taken for execution. And as he was leaving, that's when he cursed the chair, saying that if anyone dared sit in his chair after his death, they would die. Now, the other story is that he cursed it as his final words right before the execution. But either way, he basically said the same thing, that whoever sat in the chair is doomed to die. Now, Busby's ghost itself is said to be seen not only in the inn, but also out in the street in front of where the gibbet was placed, and also at the Thirsk Museum where the chair is currently displayed. It is said that over 60 people have died mysteriously after sitting in the chair of death. The first recorded death was that of a chimney sweep. Him and his friend had stopped at the bar, kind of hung out, drank a lot, got drunk. The guy that sat in the chair actually passed out in the street. The next morning when they came out, the guy had been strung up in a nearby tree very close to where Busby was hung. At first they suspected that it was a suicide, but his friend that was there with him on his deathbed, he admitted to robbing the guy and killing him. Now, it was said that during the Second World War, Busby's Inn was a common watering hole for the local airmen. And it was commonplace for the airmen to dare each other to sit in the chair. Those that did never returned from the war. In 1968, the owner of the inn at the time, Tony Earnshaw, overheard one such interaction of two men daring each other. They both sat in the chair on the return trip in their automobile back to the base. They actually went off the road, hit a tree, and unfortunately both of them passed away before they could reach the hospital. Other recorded victims are one cleaning lady. She was cleaning the floor. She bumped into the chair, and because she bumped into the chair, then she developed a tumor and passed away. There's been various motorcycle, automobile, and cycling deaths related to people sitting in the chair. A hitchhiker that was staying at the inn for 2 days, he actually got run over and killed after supposedly sitting in the chair too. A local man, shortly after sitting in the chair, had a heart attack and passed away. A roofer sat in the chair, and shortly after, he fell through the roof onto the concrete below, causing his death. The roofer was a very young man, and he was goaded into sitting in the chair by people on his crew. This was actually the final straw for Earnshaw, the guy that owned the chair at the time, in the inn. He then moved the chair from in the bar down into the cellar, trying to prevent any other person from sitting and passing away due to the chair. Unfortunately, a delivery man from the local brewery was down in the cellar. He was carrying barrels down, I think, and he didn't know the history of the chair, just saw it sitting down there, sitting in the chair. Later, he commented to Earnshaw that it was too far of a comfortable chair to be sitting, wasting away in the basement. He was unfortunately shortly killed afterwards when his delivery van went off the road. And devastated at his death in 1978, Earnshaw donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum, where it is today. He donated under one stipulation, that they place the chair in such a way that no one could possibly sit in it. The chair is now sitting on hooks in a corner 5 feet off the floor in the museum to keep people from actually physically being able to touch it or sit in it. What do you think? Could the chair of death be real? Given the chance, would you dare to sit in it and find out for yourself? Let me know in the comments. And as always, good night and sweet dreams. Bye-bye.